I've been talking a lot about attachment, relationships, dynamics that we pick up on, patterns that we have in relationships. And it just feels like an important time for me to bring up a really important topic and concept. And it's a concept that refers to abandonment, refers to people who have been in experiences where there wasn't an outright form of neglect, there wasn't an outright form of abuse, but in their attachment patterns, so to speak, right? We're talking about relationships, beliefs of self that are birthed in the developing years. This post is for people who have abandonment wounds. Now, what does that actually mean? Abandonment, when you say the word abandonment, sometimes what comes to mind is, thinking of a child left on a street corner. And that is a form of abandonment and neglect. But for the sake of today, what I'm going to be talking about is emotional abandonment and the concept of, having some of your basic needs met, right? Hopefully, you can have physical abandonment and also emotional abandonment. But I'm talking now about the specifics of emotional abandonment, which means that, feeling very much alone in your developing years. Feeling that you can have emotional abandonment as well right now as an adult in your adult relationship. You might have a partner, a family member, a close friend who just really isn't there. But usually emotional abandonment, when we use the term, is referring to younger years because it's a very core sensitive, fragile time of the development of your identity and the beliefs of yourself. So there's something called emotional abandonment, and what's interesting is that there's a grief that comes along with abandonment. There's a specific kind of grief, and it's different than the grief of death or the grief of a loss. And people sometimes will say, like, it's not like I lost a mom. It's not like I lost a dad. It's not like I lost my siblings. There was no funeral. There's no inheritance. The community comes to support people when there's a death, when there's, something that is like boxy, like, oh, you lost the mom, you lost the dad, compassion, care, attentiveness. But when it comes to emotional abandonment, number one, it's silent. So many times people doubt themselves when they're younger because they just think like, why do I not feel okay? Right? Because it isn't something that they become aware of until they're older and they develop a more robust understanding of emotional needs. And number two, people can't see it, right? People might see that you have a house or you have siblings or you have parents and you seem okay, but it's not like people don't see the wounds and the pains that people carry, right? Which is why we learn about really just being sensitive. You never really know what somebody's holding or going through. So I just wanted to talk about this because I wrote down a few pointers about the difference between, abandonment grief and other kinds of grief or other kinds of bereavement. One of the things that I wrote about is the isolation factor. That if you feel really isolated, know that it's a real thing. Your grief is real. You're not crazy. And it makes sense to feel isolated, okay? Number two, no one's going to give you bereavement time, right? Nobody tells people, oh, you had some difficulties, you have some emotional wounds, like I'm going to give you off, like a month, 2 months, 6 months, even like a day to go have your mental health day. But what I'm saying right here is you make that time. I'm not telling you that you should take off work. Yes, sometimes people have to take off work to go to an intensive residential program or do an intensive therapy. But in many cases, you don't need to do an intensive, but it's your job to prioritize your emotional healing. Because living with chronic grief of abandonment is so painful, and you can actually heal those abandonment wounds. You can actually heal those parts of self and learn a better way of connecting to your day right now and to relationships right now and for the possibilities of your life. The other thing that I put down is the fact that there's a lot of times shame about the pain that people have. So, sometimes someone might say, like, I feel so ashamed because, my next door neighbor or my best friend just lost something in the family or someone in the family, right? And I am crying about, I'm either in the middle of parenting my child, or I'm struggling in a certain cycle in my love relationship, or I'm feeling just like a misfit in a specific social situation or at work, or I'm trapped professionally. I can't go past a certain bar, or I'm just really having a hard time sleeping. Something's keeping me up at night, and I'm crying and I'm sad. And people carry so much shame because you shouldn't be feeling that emotional feelings. And I'm going to be here to say, you have every single right to feel whatever kind of emotions you feel. There isn't like, permission slip of, in these instances, you can cry, you can need emotional space. No, if there's something that's coming up for you, it's valid. I talk so much about, the mind-body connection and the somatic informed psychotherapies. And the past 10 years or even more research proves that our bodies carry memories in the cells in our body. There's something called, like body memories. And there's emotional experiences, and your body is not lying. If you feel like you need to mourn or heal, then it's valid. And if you haven't been validated when you're younger, you're going to have to do that right now if you want to be able to validate yourself, your loved ones, and your children, and provide a different form of patterning for your future. So say you do have emotional abandonment wounds, say you do have a lot of grief you're going through. I'm just going to give you one tip that I find helpful, and we use this in the process of healing therapy. And this is not intended to heal your wounds right now, but it's intended to give you a little flavor of something. So there's something called building your dream house. Now, it's a visualization exercise. It's an exercise that sometimes we will do in therapy as well, with people who are creative and are, interested in using their hands and drawing something out. But the dream house is the concept of really creating a dream house of the kind of home that you wish you grew up in, or the kind of home that you want to create internally for the parts of yourself that felt very much left alone when you were younger. And we literally go into details about what does it look like? What does the lawn look like? How many rooms does it have? Imagine there's no financial limit, right? And really creating a warm, nurturing, soothing space. And, it helps us see, like, where have you imposed limits on yourself? And how can we actually break those through? Kind of like, in karate, when someone is going to do like breaking that brick, they first do a visualization, because they know that if you're able to clear out the blockages, higher chances are that you'll use the energy and the body strength to break something through. So the dream house is really a visualization exercise that lights up part of the brain that allow the imagination to flourish and to just expand, because we know that people who've been through loss, abandonment, trauma, the imagination usually dries up. So it allows you to imagine what's possible. It allows you to dream. It allows you to offer something new for yourself. So if you resonate with any of what I just shared, I would actually encourage you, take out a pen, take out some color markers, and draw your dream house. And it doesn't even have to be from the past. It could even be from today, right? What kind of home do I want to create internally for myself? You might notice you want something different in your real-time house. You might notice that you want a warm scented candle. You might notice that your home really needs like a warm, fluffy blanket, or a beautiful picture of yourself or of loved ones, or just of a beautiful scenic view. You might realize that you want more people. You want to create more social events and just have more of a warm gathering feeling inside. You might want to raise awareness about specific things you've struggled with and just talk about it, so there's less shame and there's more empowerment and healing. So that's just a tip. So just to wrap up, number one, if you have emotional grief or abandonment loss or wounds, you're not crazy. You have every valid right to feel your feelings. Number two, it is your job to prioritize your healing. Number three, healing is totally possible. But what we want to do is we want to join the energy and actually skills and actions to help yourself heal. And the first step you can do if you're game is try this dream house exercise. I'd love to hear how it goes.